Last Valentine's Day, my wife and I celebrated our 21st wedding anniversary. What do you think? Yeah, thank you. Now, we actually tell everyone that we celebrated 29 years of marriage. 21 of it together, the other 8 combined among other people. A couple of you understand that. But we got Valentine's Day, the year we got married, was on a Sunday. And as luck would have it, I had to leave to go on a business trip the next day. So here was the plan. We would get married on Sunday afternoon. We would go home. I would leave on my business trip on Monday. I would come home on Tuesday. We'd leave on our honeymoon on Wednesday. So now it's Monday morning, 6:45. I'm up. My wife has moved in with me. I'm up. I'm in the bathroom packing for my business trip. And I noticed something for the very first time about my wife. Because my wife squeezes toothpaste from the middle of the tube. Now, I, on the other hand, follow instructions, which say, for best results, squeeze from the middle and roll up. Now, here's what I found, is that there are 2 types of people in the world. There are middle squeezers, there are bottom squeezers. And it has nothing to do with, so we actually made these T-shirts. Squeeze me from the bottom, and squeeze me from the middle. Now, I was doing a program for a group of dentists last November, and at the end of this, one of these dentists came up and said, I want to buy one of those T-shirts that says, squeeze my bottom. That's not what this says, okay? But just out of curiosity, here's a bottom squeezer? Okay, I saw your, ma'am, I saw your first, you get the bottom. Who's a middle squeezer? I saw your middle squeezer right here. Here, you get that one right there. Congratulations. I hope you enjoy them. But so here was the plan. I mean, I walked in. Now here's what you think. You begin to think, maybe I should say something to her about this squeezing from the middle. That fear sets in, doesn't it? People say, no, don't do that. You seem like a nice guy. Don't do that. Fear sets in, doesn't it? I could just see myself. My wife still sound asleep, me standing in the middle of the bedroom with a tube of toothpaste going, what is this? And it didn't seem like a great idea, so I did what I suspect most of you would do. I rolled it back up from the bottom. I returned it to the holder. I assumed that it would be a one-time single incident occurrence, which would of course be self-correcting once I modeled the appropriate behavior. Off I go on my trip, come home the next day to pack, unpack for my trip, repack for my honeymoon, walk into the bathroom. The first thing I look for is the toothpaste. Why? That's what we do. There it was again, squeezed from the center. I thought, you should say something to her about this. This goes on for a couple of months. Her from the middle, me from the bottom. Her from the middle, me from the bottom. During that time, we went to visit her parents. Now, I'd been to see her parents before, but now I was seeing with new eyes. Her mother and father have separate bathrooms. So I walked into her mother's bathroom. There it was, squeezed from the center. And I thought, you're on to something. Later that day, we went to visit her grandmother, her mother's mother. I found an excuse to leave the conversation. I snuck into her grandmother's bathroom. There was the toothpaste, not squeezed from the center, but it was more like mangled from the center. And now I know I'm dealing with a genetic problem, which will only get worse with age, right? And so finally one day I'd had it up to here and I turned to her and said, don't you know I hate this? Well, that's her version. My wife looked at me and smiled. That was my first clue that she had been doing it on purpose. She said, quote, oh, sure, I knew that 2 months ago. And she was laughing. Me? Not so much. I said, well, if you knew it 2 months ago, why did you keep doing it? And she said, quote, you're the hotshot consultant. Travel all over the country, helping people communicate more effectively, be accountable, yada, yada, yada. I wanted to see how long it would take before you'd mention it to me, and she, like you, was laughing more. Me, still, not so much. I said, well, I'm mentioning it to you now. What are you going to do about it? And she said, quote, it's a 79-cent problem. If it means that much to you, I'll buy 2 tubes. Now here's the question. First off, am I the first person to ever have that problem? No, I'm just the first person stupid enough to create a story about it. Second, was the problem with my wife? No. You see, if I had gone to her, not at 6:45 the first morning, but at the first appropriate time and say, hey, this may not be a big deal to you, but it is to me. Is there something we can do about it? One of two things would have happened. First off, she would have said, no big deal, 79-cent problem, we'll get it solved. Or if you actually knew my wife, you know that her more likely response would have been, seems like a personal problem, you'll have to get over it. Either way, it's solved, right? Now here's the really most important question. How often do 79-cent problems and what you do grow and grow and grow till we have to have special meetings with special agendas, with special permissions and special participants and everything else? And it keeps us from delivering great service, mostly because we didn't have the courage to say to someone, maybe we ought to do something about this. See, the courage of accountability really comes when you and I say it's of service to people. Not to be rude about it, but it's of service to people to say, this is a 79-cent problem. How do we get this solved? How do we get this solved now? Because we know if we don't, it'll grow. It'll grow.